Today on Locked On Red Wings, the Detroit Red Wings are red hot and right back in the wild card race. But what do they have to do to maintain this success once the hot streak has ended?
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, while I am a color commentator for Oakland University, ACHA, D1 men's hockey. And Scotty, as we are all aware, the Red Wings are red hot right now, riding a 5-game winning streak and right back in the mix for the wild card, just sitting, 2 points back of that final wild card spot as of right now with a game in hand on the Columbus Blue Jackets. But it's a honeymoon phase, right? Like, this team's playing unbelievable. They're motivated because they got a new coach. They think they can accomplish anything. But at a certain point, that winning streak will come to an end. And when the honeymoon phase ends, what do the Red Wings got to do to maintain that success? What from what they have been succeeding with has been real and what's just a hot streak? So we'll break down all that for you guys on today's episode, as well as take a look ahead at the schedule. We did it a little bit very late in the episode yesterday, but want to do that again, as well as look beyond that at the schedule to see what the Red Wings should and need to do to be able to really solidify themselves as a wild card threat. But before we begin, I do want to give a special shout out to Prashant Iyer. He posted a fantastic article, which has heavily inspired this episode's topic, about what this team's got to do to make the playoffs, just strictly make the playoffs, kind of drawing a lot of parallels between the Red Wings and the 2019 St. Louis Blues. He's not saying they are the same team, but a run like that to make the playoffs from almost dead last, what the Red Wings got to do, and looking at them as the example. So definitely go ahead and go read that, because his stuff is always fantastic, as is Sean Shapiro and Max Bultman's articles as well. But Scotty, right now, as previously stated, the Red Wings are on a 5-game winning streak, but as fun as it is, we're not naive. I mean, we are sometimes, but in this instance, we know that it's not going to last forever. So my first question to you is, what on this team is working right now? What has them hot at this moment?
Well, I think there's a multitude of things, and that's why we're talking about the possibility of maintaining. Obviously, they're not going to win out, but the possibility of maintaining all of these things, I think, is much more so the question. I mean, we talked on yesterday's show about just how unreal the power play has been. Like, they can be good. They can be one of the better power plays in hockey. They're not going to be as good of the ridiculous clip that they've been at since McClellan got hired. And they are largely, while the personnel may change, the system, I mean, it hasn't seemed to be too much different. They still are holding on for dear life to the coach that is running special teams in large part. So I think that is a place we can start, but it really is, everything is clicking. The goaltending has continued to be solid, even though that was solid really in the Newsy era as well. The 5-on-5 play has been dramatically different for the better. They've been out shooting their opponents. I mean, there's a lot that has been going right. It's just a matter of, as you said, are all of those things maintainable over the course of the rest of the season? I think that's where you probably get some mixed results.
Right, and so all of those things are true, and I want to expand on every single one of those in due time, but I do want to start with the power play, right? And you were completely correct in naming that as the biggest reason why this team's hot, right? We talked about it yesterday. They're 10 for their last 19 since McClellan has taken over on the power play, a 62.5% success rate on the power play. I don't think it takes a genius, Scotty, to say that that's not real. Right. It's real in that power play is very good. They were 11th in the league before McClellan took over. It was a very good power play beforehand. It was a very good power play last year. It is a very real power play. But what they're doing right now, 62%, that's not real. That's not sustainable. And so I do think that power play being top 10 is sustainable, but not the current clip they're doing. And so when that falls off, and when I say fall off, I mean comes back down to earth to around, 10th, in the 8th, 9th, wherever it would lie, what else has to do better as well? And I do think that a different area where this team is improving is that 5-on-5 play that you mentioned, right? We said it on yesterday's show. This team has not been outshot in the McClellan era. There have been plenty of games they haven't outshot their opponent. They've tied in shots, like last night against the Ottawa Senators, but they have not been outshot in the McClellan era. Is that real, Scotty? Is that new coach bump, or is that a real change we are seeing with this Detroit Red Wings team?
I think this is one where I tend to ride the fence a little bit. Like, I think it probably is, a little bit of both. I think you can acknowledge that the 5-on-5 play has been better without thinking that it is going to be outshoot your opponent the rest of the season good as well. I think we talked about so much, like ad nauseum, at the end of the Lalone era, the player and roster construction and the personnel groups and how much we were frustrated by them or disagreed with them just straight up. And I think that the positive is that there are different personnel groups. There's different lines. He's shaken up, who's playing with who, and we're getting looks at players that we absolutely were not in the roles they are currently in. Now, obviously, you have like the top guys who are just going to be top players no matter what, but like a lot of those kind of middle six and bottom six players have been jumbled around in the McClellan era, and it's been for the better, and that's great. I have a hard time believing that it's. I don't want to minimize McClellan, but like I have a hard time believing it's that easy. Like I have a hard time believing it's like, we moved around Joe Veleno a little bit, and we Tyler Mott got some more playing time, and we kind of jumbled things up, and then all of a sudden everything was just great.
Right.
So I like the players are still the players, and it's the same group of players that were on the team before, and I feel like at some point there is going to be, as you put it, kind of the end of the honeymoon phase where it's like, okay, we're now what's the adjustment? Because now they've cooled off a little bit. The league has adjusted, whatever it may be. Now what is the adjustment? Is there going to be a system that's a little bit more seriously implemented to have this success be sustained, et cetera? So that's one where I would like to say it's probably a little bit of both. I think that McClellan has had an impact, and he absolutely has been a big reason, maybe the biggest reason why the 5-on-5 play has improved. But I don't think that they're going to outshoot every single team they play the rest of the year either, and that they're probably going to have some hiccups before the All-Star break, even no less, at the end of the season.
Well, and the 5-on-5 play has improved, yet at the same time it has a ways to go yet. And this is one of the comparisons.
You can be better from terrible and still not be good.
Right. And like the thing that stands out to me when you look at every single game so far in the McClellan era is that they aren't getting outshot, but their second periods are absolutely brutal. In every single game, they get caved in on the second period almost without fail. It happened again against the Senators, right? And that was a game at the end of the day, the Red Wings had the edge in shot attempts, expected goals 4. Total shots ended up being 50-50. I think the Red Wings might have had the edge in 5-on-5. I'd have to double check that exact game at the end of the day. But like the second period continues to be a thorn on their side, which is why overall in the McClellan era, they aren't above 50% in shot attempt share, expected goal share, or just shot share. Because and there's a myriad of reasons why that could happen, right? You talk about the Washington game. They jumped out to an early 4-1 lead. So in the second period, you shift gears a little bit. It's not about pouring it on. It's about trying to maintain. But also at the same time, now the Washington Capitals are trying to pour it on because they have 40 minutes to try and mount a comeback. So there are reasons why in every game that they could be playing worse. But like games yesterday against the Ottawa Senators, it was a 1-0 game. It was still a one-shot game, and they got pounded. So the second period for me isn't a concern because it has only been 6 games, right? But at the same time, that is the biggest red flag to me as of right now that needs to be addressed is they come out strong they almost empty the tank in the first period and need an entire period to readjust before coming back out in the third. Now, I mean, if you get a big lead in the first period, like that takes a little bit of the pressure off the second period, but they don't always get a big lead. There've been a couple games where they've been tied or just up one after one, and they can't afford to play poorly, and they've kind of gotten away with it. So the second period is a big one, but that doesn't mean that they aren't getting better at 5-on-5 overall, right? I said it on yesterday's show, Scotty. During Derek Lalonde's first 36 games he played before he got fired, the Red Wings were 30th in Corsi for percentage, which is shot attempt share and expected goals share at 5-on-5. 30th of 32. They were not getting the puck out of the zone, and so they were not getting shots on net. They won a game with 11 shots earlier in the season, and it was a miracle they won that game. Since then, in the 6 games McLellan has played, again, small sample size, so everything we say is a grain of salt. We're just trying to see so far what has real substance to it. But in that 6 games, the Detroit Red Wings are 22nd in shot attempt share and 22nd in expected goal share as well. A marked improvement. That's 8 spots higher, but that's still not over 50%. And if you want to be a serious contender in the NHL for a playoff spot, especially when your power play starts to cool off, you're going to need to carry at least 50% of the shot attempt share and expected goal share. And when I say share, I mean, I'm literally just talking about you need to generate more than half of the shot attempts for versus against in any given game. That means you're having the puck more often than the opponent. You're in the offensive zone, and they're doing a much better job at it. It's not nearly as bad, right? But this is where once the honeymoon phase ends, the systems and the real work begins, and you're going to need to see whatever system McLellan is trying to get in. Because right now they're playing loose, they're playing fun, they're relying on their instincts as they try to get a system in place. But once this hot streak and honeymoon phase ends, you're going to need the system to take a hold and to have them generate more, because you're not going to make the playoffs without at least a 50% goal share. Of course, I shouldn't say that definitively, right? I'm sure there are plenty of teams that were a hair or two under that have made the playoffs relying on strong power plays, but you'll make your life a lot easier if you can get to at least 50%. And I think in the McLellan era, you are, as of right now, at 22, you are at 48.97. So you're almost there. You are almost there. You just got to get a little bit better. So that's what I'm looking for, is better second periods at 5-on-5, and overall just not letting not letting your foot off the gas.
For sure. And I think that then, a conversation for a different day maybe, but I think then you get into the conversation of, okay, well, how good can this roster be at that even, right? Like, what is the ceiling for 5-on-5 play with the players you have? And that, again, goes back to the end of the Lalonde era on here, where we were talking about how it's, he should probably get let go, and so we need a change of some sort, but that doesn't mean it's 100% his quote unquote fault for the Wings ending up here. And I have questions about whether the roster as it's constructed can ever be a really like top end team when it comes to possession metrics. But right now you're talking about bottom 3 in the NHL versus like almost outside of the bottom 10, and you're like in the middle of the pack. So we'll gladly take that.
Yes. We're going to head to a quick break, and when we return, we'll talk a little bit more about this before taking a look ahead at what's next for the Detroit Red Wings on the schedule. Stay tuned to segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. I love going to live events, in particular hockey, although baseball is a strong number 2, Scotty. So if you're looking for tickets to any live event, I would strongly suggest you check out Gametime. I myself went to Gametime on Tuesday and locked up some Stadium Series tickets of my own. Very excited. My first outdoor Red Wings game, and I couldn't have gotten a better deal if it were not for Gametime, showing me the best value for where I got my seats. And honest to goodness, like they highlight the best deals, what percentage it is in terms of value versus where the rest of the prices are at in that section. I did turn on that all-in pricing toggle, so I didn't get any surprise fees after I had committed to the tickets, and I got that $20 off in checkout. I mean, $20 is $20 back in my pocket thanks to code LOCKEDONNHL. So I highly recommend that if you're going to be going to any Red Wings events or Tigers events, and you know what? Hell, Pistons events, because they're also a 500 team right now and firmly sitting in a playoff spot. Check out Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, I think the other thing that we have to address with this team on whether or not it is real or in general still needs room for improvement if this team is going to be real and maintain this is the penalty kill. It has improved. They've changed the style. And again, Sean Shapiro, shout out. He wrote a beautiful article about the change in the penalty kill. Now they're just running a passive, as he puts it, a passive diamond in the defensive zone, which, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. The players are set up in a diamond formation, and they're kind of just trying to box out and clog passing lanes, so there's no easy opportunities, where in the past, the top player in the defensive zone in the penalty kill was skating all over the place, and it was exhausting and frustrating to players, as he put it. So now with this passive diamond, they're seeing a little bit more success. They still have given up 4 power play goals against in the 6 games that they've played, but the percentage is getting better, and obviously 2 huge penalty kills against the Winnipeg Jets, who had the best penalty kill in the league at 31%, which is absurd. That's not across 6 games like with the Red Wings, and they're 61%. That's across 40 games. The Winnipeg Jets have a 31%. That is incredible. And the Red Wings killed off 2 of those. So the new penalty kill is starting to look better, but that is still something that needs to take hold and make it, to middle of the pack average for this team to seriously be considered for, if you want to be considered a real threat for a wild card. Because right now, again, you're running hot. It's great. We love it. The team looks motivated, but how much of this is sustainable and how can we make it sustainable? And that's one thing that needs to become sustainable.
For sure. Sustainable. I think that sustainable. I think I completely agree with you, though. I do think that when that was a point that I was going to bring up too, like we can harp on the power play and talk about how much they need to continue being really solid, or what they can do to be sustainable and et cetera. But the penalty kill was just so bad that as you put it, I really just am realizing I'm just echoing your same thoughts here, so we can move on. But like it really is, we're not asking for like the elite penalty kill of the league or the division or the conference or whatever. Like if they can just be a middle of the road, average-ish PK, and the power play can be not as good as it's been in the last 6 games. We already talked about that's not sustainable, but like the course of the season, right? Like just the power play numbers on the year. If you can hold there and just be average on the PK, you're talking about winning the special teams battle probably more nights than not, because that's how good the power play's been. So. You just need to not have it be a complete wash. You need it to not be like, we have a great power play, but it doesn't really matter because we give up 2 a night on the kill. Like it just, you need to have some sort of an advantage in special teams. And I think that's a way to do it and keep this product close to where it's been at.
So basically, to recap, what we've discussed is we think the power play is real and that it's very good, because we already knew that. It's not sustainable.
Whoa.
In that it's going to be 61.5%. It will come down to earth. So for the Red Wings to continue to win hockey games, the 5-on-5 has to continue to improve. And it has improved. In the last 6 games, they're almost at 50%, but they need to get to at least 50%, if not better, at shot attempt creation historically to really be a real threat, as well as the penalty kill has to continue to improve. And we've only seen positive signs. The only real thing that's concerning to me is how bad the second periods have been. But the first periods have been fantastic, and the third periods have been at worst competitive. So you're playing 2 out of 3 periods very strongly. If you can make the third one not a disaster, then you'll be sitting real pretty. Honest to God, if they get the second period just looking okay, they will make that, where I'm talking about getting to 50%, they will be there, if not better. So like the ingredients are there for this team to become a sustainably competitive hockey team, and that they'll be in the mix. but it's all about how they respond when they get punched in the mouth for the first time. And it will happen. Hopefully not in the next 3 games, which we'll talk about in segment 3, but it will happen.
For
Scotty,
sure. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I agree with you. I mean, again, they're obviously they're going to lose here at some point, relatively soon. Like they're not just going to win every game from here on out. And I think it's about how they lose that hockey game. If it just completely goes off the rails and everything that's been working for them stops all of a sudden, then we have another issue to talk about. And we're just going to look at that fun month as that, but not even fun like 2 weeks as that. But I think that they're like, I still have serious questions about the blue line going forward. Like I still have a lot of concerns with this hockey team. Isn't just like, oh, like they're on a W5 and everything's good. So like, this is just a good hockey team now. Like I still have a lot of questions surrounding the blue line. I think that plays into the possession metrics and the Corsi numbers and everything that you bring up all the time, right? Like it's like 2 consistently solid players, and that's kind of it. And so we're seeing the pair juggling down in the back. Like I don't know. I think that there's still a lot of questions that need to be answered. But for right now, we're just gonna ride the wave, baby, and just enjoy the hot streak while it's here, and hopefully it stays here for a long time.
Right, and they've been a much better defensively in the regard that they don't give up as many goals outside of that Columbus game where they gave up a ton.
Right.
Because of the fact they possess the puck a lot more. It's go figure. You look better defensively when you have the puck more and are shooting the puck more. Like seems like a no dust statement, but it turns out if you have the puck, you give up less goals. Kind of crazy sentiment right there.
Crazy.
But also, I think McLellan's done a nice job. I was very hesitant with the Edvinsson and Seider breakup because we know how good they've been and we saw them broken up in the past. But I think him divvying up the deployments has worked, taking some of the burden off of Seider and Edvinsson and splitting it between them instead has worked. Sherratt's looked pretty good on the top pair. So I think that's been working. Will it continue to work? I mean, that remains to be seen. We still need more production out of the bottom 6. You saw how big that goal was from the 4th line against the Ottawa Senators, Joe Veleno's goal. Like, you need to have guys, because that's another thing, is Larkin and Kane are hot right now, but eventually they'll cool off a little bit. So you need other players to pick up some of the slack, and you need your bottom 6 to do that. And outside of Joe Veleno's 1 goal or the back-to-back games where Berggren scored, you're not getting a ton from your bottom 6. So those are still, again, things that are improving, right? McLellan has done good work early here to kind of protect the defensive pairings that is still like, and you're right, it's still shallow, right? Those are still shallow defensive pairings. But he's done a good job splitting up the responsibility to make them all look better, and the puck possession is better, so they look a little bit more favorably. The top 6 is scoring at an incredible rate because they're allowed to have fun again, but you still need more, right? Because eventually these hot streaks are going to cool off, and that's when the real work begins. So I'm really excited. They're playing great hockey right now. I'm going to ride this wave as long as we can, but it's not. A lot of this is not real yet. It's about how they respond when they get punched in the mouth that's going to determine what sticks and what doesn't. Scotty, we're going to head to a quick break, and when we return, we're going to look ahead at the next 3 games, and then beyond that as well a little bit, but mostly the next 3 games, to talk about what this team could do and what they need to do. Stay tuned to segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need to live bet, same-game parlays, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Did I say it normal enough for you?
That one was okay.
Just okay? Okay.
Yeah, it was like I could make fun of it, but it wasn't like an all-timer either,
I mean, there's a lot about me you could make fun of that you choose not to, and I'm grateful for that, honestly, Scotty.
I do?
Yeah, there's a lot you leave on the table. There's a lot of good material here.
Okay, I'll have to work on that.
No, don't. Leave it. I'm thanking you for not. I get it enough at home. Jeez. So the next 3 days, next 3 games rather, the Red Wings play straight up bottom feeders in the NHL.
Yeah.
There's no other way of saying it. I think the Kraken aren't as bad as where they sit in the standings, but San Jose is one of the worst teams in the league, although Macklin Celebrini is really fun.
Dude, he's so fun.
The Chicago Blackhawks are the worst team in the league. Connor Bedard is heating up now that they have the new interim head coach in place, but he's got no supporting cast around him, really. So, and these are all home games. So the Red Wings are walking in to this weekend slate of games, plus San Jose during the week, with an opportunity, Scotty. I'm not saying they're not going to do it. It'd be irresponsible to say they're going to do it. But they could have an 8-game winning streak because these are all 3 beatable teams. In reality, what I need from this team is 2 out of 3. You cannot lose to the Blackhawks, and you cannot lose to San Jose if you are serious about being back in the mix for the wild card. Now, losing to either one of those teams is not going to end your chances. But we saw how important points were last year when the Red Wings missed on a tiebreaker and had dropped games against Arizona twice, San Jose once, and I think did they lose the Blackhawks once as well last year? So we know how crucial at the end of the season these points can be. So in any order, you need to get, in my opinion, 2 wins out of 3. It would be the easiest to take the weakest opponents out, Blackhawks and San Jose. Where do you stand on that, dude?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. We talked about it. Was that on air or no? I'm trying to remember.
It was at the end of yesterday. It was at the end of yesterday's episode.
Okay, yeah, I just couldn't remember if we were recording or not. But you and I talked yesterday, about the fact that they do need to take 2 of these next 3, and I'm not gonna come on here and be like, hey, they need to win 8 straight. That's that should probably not be said by any fan base. I don't think that should ever be a need of a team, right? But I think that you are in a position now where the pass is the pass. You're already on a W5. So it's the 3 games in front of you. And it's, as you just mentioned, 3 not very good teams, 2 of which are legitimately, I mean, you could argue the 2 worst rosters in hockey. So I really do think that even if it's not necessarily as black and white as you have to beat Chicago and San Jose and then you can lose to Seattle, even if it's just kind of grouping them all together and just be like, you know what, if you can walk out of these 3 bottom feeders with 2 of 3, I mean, you're talking about a 7-1 stretch and you're right back in the thick of the wild card race.
All right. And that's another thing that Prashanth brought up too in his articles. Really, the Red Wings got to have a 600 win percentage from here on out to actually make the playoffs if the point totals are going to be reasonably close to where they were last year for the threshold. And so winning 2 of 3 would be 6-6-7. You kind of have to, from here on out, win 2 of your next 3 for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
And maybe not that steep, right? In reality, 6-10 is not 2 of 3. That's not how percentages work. But when you're playing teams at home that are in the Western Conference, that are some of the worst in the league, it kind of becomes must-win hockey, and every game is must-win for the Red Wings at this point because they're trying to dig themselves out a hole. And plus, with the middle, the middle being so mid this season, these wins are going to be crucial if you want to separate yourself from the pack and even just kind of elevate yourself up the pack too. So those 3 are important and even more amplified when you look at the rest of the month because the roster or the schedule gets a lot harder after those 3 because after San Jose, you play Florida in Florida, Tampa in Tampa. And that's a huge matchup too because Tampa is still reasonably close in the standings that you could feasibly catch. Not likely, but they are reasonably close, just 4 points ahead with, I think, a game in hand as well, but I digress. Then you go to Dallas. Then you go to Philadelphia, where you struggle to win hockey in Philly. And then you come back home to Montreal, back home to Tampa, back home against the Kings, and then out to Edmonton to finish out the month and start your Western Canada road trip. So you play from here on. After those 3 games, you play nothing but either teams that are currently competing for a wild card that are all above you, or teams that are legitimate playoff or Stanley Cup contenders. So it really amplifies how important the next 3 are when you look at the slate for the rest of the month.
Yeah, well, and yes, I think maybe sometimes we get a little bit too hung up as a society on like schedule watching, right? Like I've talked about this in baseball terms as well, even though that's obviously a much more, rigorous schedule. But like, I feel like if you're good, then like you're good and you are going to go out there and win some games. If you have to do the mental gymnastics of like, well, here's a win and then, 15 teams are better than us, so these are all losses, but then like, oh, if we play enough bad teams, like just go out there and win hockey games. And like in the immediate, yes, like you play bottom feeders. Again, like we already talked about that, you should go win 2 of 3. But like, I don't know if anybody's mindset should be like, you need to win 2 of the next 3 because you are going to lose, or like it's a lot harder down the road. Like, if you're going to make the playoffs, you're going to have to beat some good teams. Like if you want to really catapult yourself back into the mix on a national scale, you're going to have to beat teams that are better than you, quote unquote. So like, I think they just take the next 3 and yeah, hopefully walk out of there with at least 4 points, if not 6.
Right. And you're correct. This is a league where you're going to win games, especially in hockey, right? With the amount of variance you get with, playing on ice with a rubber puck and boards, boards that keep the puck in the bounds. There's a ton of variance in this sport of hockey. So you're going to beat teams that you shouldn't, and you're going to lose to teams that you shouldn't as well. But you make your life a whole hell of a lot easier by beating the teams that are much easier to beat. So that when you lose, you're supposed to beat. So while it's not the end of the year, like even if they get swept, and God forbid they get swept and go 0-3 against in the next 3 at home, it's not the end of the world, but you make your life a hell of a lot harder the next 8 games that finish out the month when you're playing much more difficult teams. You allow yourself more grace by taking care of business against the teams you should take care of business for. And they only got to you're talking about how they need to go 6 of 10, right? Prashant's number that he was sharing was 600, right? Around 600 win percentage. And that's a steep ask for a team that,
that's barely a really
has been 500
team,
last year. Yeah. They got 11 games left. So you're looking at 6 or 7 games this month still that they still have to win despite this 5-game winning streak. So it's a tough ask. Like, I don't mean to like pour a cold bucket of water on everybody, and obviously other teams could get cold, they could get hot. So like you can only control what you can control, but that's
right
exactly
now,
like,
nobody
control what
wants
you can.
So like, I mean, right now it's if we're comparing ourselves to the rest of the race there, it's just a big blob of mid, just like that's like over half of the conference at the moment. So,
right. But anyways, we will take it 1 game at a time. 8-game winning streak would be insane, but I don't think it's going to happen. But I'm setting my expectation of 2 of the next 3.
Same.
All right. Scotty, any final thoughts?
We ball, baby.
We ball. Let us know what you guys think in the comments about these Detroit Red Wings. What do you think's real? What do you still think needs to be worked on? And what do you think is fake? Stay tuned to Lockdown Red Wings to hear more. We'll be back tomorrow with a new episode previewing the game against the Chicago Blackhawks. So stay tuned. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.